This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I'm your host, Noah Tsaluki, and on today's episode, we're going to do a whole recap of the Tigers' weekend, a little opening day from last week, some big wins over the Indians and the Twins. We'll break that down for you. And a couple questions that I have about this Tigers season as well. Also, college basketball ending the national championship. We'll tell you about that. We'll break that down, who won that game, and some interesting news from Michigan State basketball on one of their coaches. It's about one of their coaches. So I want to break that down. We have a loaded baked potato here on this Wednesday afternoon at the time of recording, but hopefully everybody had a great Easter. I was very happy to be able to go home because at first I was supposed to just stay in Cleveland, and enjoy Easter here. But it ended up being, some things got canceled and some people went home and all that. So I said, why not? Why not go home after our lacrosse game on Saturday, because I had to broadcast that. And I was able to see my family and see some friends and all that. And it was really, really good. And I was able to golf, too. I mean, the weather was absolutely beautiful. The last couple days. I mean, I was able to go out and golf. I walked 9 holes at my local course, and it was fun. It was fun. I was able to go golf 18 yesterday over here in Cleveland, and the weather today is just in the 70s, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I'm very, very happy and lucky now that this weather is finally turning, because I was worried last Thursday on opening day. I thought, I've been wearing shorts for a little bit, the weather's getting a little nicer, and all of a sudden, I wake up, and there's 3 inches of snow on the ground in Cleveland on opening day. I said, oh my gosh, how are they going to play baseball? And it was the same weather in Cleveland as it was in Detroit, and I turned that TV on, and I saw all this flurries at Comerica Park, and I thought, oh my goodness, after all this nice weather, the Midwest weather has really, really flipped on us. I mean, you think about it, I just wearing shorts, it just felt like, we might have a shorter winter because we've been having a lot of longer winters lately. We might have a shorter winter. We might actually have really nice weather for opening day baseball. And then it completely flipped. 20 degrees, freezing. You see all those fans at Comerica Park with their blankets bundled up. And then the flurries of snow. You could barely even see the baseball. And I was just laughing. I says, oh my gosh, it's really going to be like this. Luckily, though, that was the only cold day we really had. The other days have been great. I mean, I've been wearing shorts and sandals and a t-shirt, and I've been fine. I haven't been freezing or anything. But I will say, I've been impressed with the Tigers. I mean, did anybody see this coming? Look, I thought at the beginning of the year, my prediction was 70 to 75 wins, somewhere in there. And I thought, that might be pushing it a little bit. But hey, I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic fan. And look, I know it's early, but as of now, if the Tigers continue to play like this, I think they could easily reach 70 to 75. Now look, there's obviously going to be growing pains, but for the most part, I'm excited. This Tigers team really exceeded expectations for me. I mean, you think about the Indians, the first series of the year. This is a team that has absolutely beaten up on the Tigers the last 2-3 years. I mean, I think they've only won like 1 or 2 games against the Tribe in the last couple years. Something crazy like that. The Tribe have just dominated the Tigers both at home and at Progressive Field. And opening day in the snow, Tigers come out aggressive. The pitching looked a lot better with Matthew Boyd, and we all know Matt Boyd struggled last year. He's supposed to be the ace of this team, and he had like a above 6 ERA or something like that. No, he struggled, but it was very obvious that the mechanics and some of the adjustments were there on opening day for Matthew Boyd, and I was pretty happy about it. Miggy, his first at-bat of the season, goes opposite field home run in the snow? I mean, he's looking like a vintage Miggy out there. I mean, this was the old Miggy that used to hit opposite field home runs. This is like MVP 2013 Triple Crown Miggy when he hit that bomb. And I know he's kind of cooled off since the home run, but I'll tell you what, I was impressed with that. And plus, that I will always remember that picture. There was somewhere out there where I saw that Topps, the baseball card company, they made this picture of Miggy hitting the ball, hitting that home run in the snow. You could just see all these snowflakes everywhere. And I think they only made a certain amount, and it was for like 24 hours they sold it, and they were all completely sold out. I mean, people were paying like $900, $1,000 for it. And I'm always going to think of that moment when I think of Miggy's later career. That's just one of those moments where I'm just going to always remember. Like I remember the home run from J.D. Martinez, his first at-bat. And Mario says, it'd be great if he hit a home run here, and then sure enough, he hits a home run. I always remember JV's no-hitter. I'll always remember, the Tigers going to the World Series, all that. This is one of those things that I'm always going to remember about the Tigers. Just my personal opinion, and it's just I'll always remember that. Watching that on my computer, I was really, really pumped when I saw that. And it's just funny because Miggy didn't even know it was a home run because he couldn't even see it. I mean, he slid into second base thinking it was just a double off the wall, and then the umpire says, "No, that was a home run," and he says, "Oh gosh, thank you." And then he took went off for third and home. But I was really, really happy with that. Soto gave up that home run to Perez, and I thought, no, please hang on for the win, please. And we ended up holding on for the win, 3-2 against the Tribe, and I was really, really satisfied with that. Then, look, I said, okay, great start, but we got to keep it going. I was worried about the back end of the rotation because, Teheran as the number 2 pitcher, he's had success with the Braves among other teams before. I don't mind him. I trust him, and I trust Boyd to a certain extent because Boyd has had success before with the Tigers. But the back end, you think of Tarek Skubal, Jose Urena, and Casey Mize. I mean, Skubal and Mize are very young, and Urena, he's been a very hit-or-miss guy, especially when it comes to fantasy, but that's a different story. So I was worried. I said, great start, but we got to keep it up. And on Saturday, I'm going home. I'm listening to the game, Cleveland radio, so 100.7 WTAM. And by the way, their broadcaster, Tom Hamilton, very, very good broadcaster. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Ernie Harwell when it comes to that conversation, that he has. And he does it solo. I mean, he has a partner, Rosie, I think his name is, but he mostly does the game by himself. And he does a very, very good job. But anyways, so I tune in and it's like 5-2 Tigers. We're in the 8th, and I'm like, oh wow, amazing that the Tigers are beating the Tribe, and Teheran looked good, and the Tigers were being aggressive and getting some runs, and I was very satisfied with that. And then because Tom Hamilton's big thing is ball game. That's what he says at the end of each game, ball game. And when the Indians win, it's like a very emphatic ball game. But the Tigers, it was just, and that's your ball game. And I remember thinking, yes, we did it. We took the first 2 against the Indians. And when Tom Hamilton he just did not seem happy, serious, and that's your ball game. I mean, I was just ecstatic. I was just going crazy in my car, and I was just like, yes, the Tigers finally did it. This is a team that's dominated them the last couple of years, and they finally took 2. They're going to win the series. And then it kind of crashed back to reality with the 9-3 loss over the Tribe on Sunday. And that was when I thought, maybe, there's a couple question marks about this, the Tigers pitching staff. Yikes. And then the next day, losing 15-6 to the Twins. There was just a couple, Urena didn't look that good. And I remember thinking, man, back to reality. We're just crashing back because that back end of the bullpen, like I mentioned, could be a problem. And then Casey Mize, the 5th starter, 4-3 victory over the Twins. And I'll say this, too. Akil Badu, we talked about him before. A couple months ago when we were kind of doing like a Tigers spring training preview, I remember I mentioned Badu, and I said, who is Badu? They talk about how awesome he is, and a Rule 5 draft pick, because the Twins had to give him up. And he did it against the Twins with the walk-off hit in the 10th on Tuesday. The Twins, so the whole point of the Rule 5 draft is so that teams don't stockpile on picks or on prospects. So in teams, if you select somebody in the Rule 5 draft, you have to pay a certain amount of money, and they have to be on the 25-man roster, or if he's not on, then he has to go back to whatever team that they got him from. So that was the situation with Victor Reyes. Victor Reyes, a couple years ago, was a Rule 5 draft pick from the Diamondbacks, and so he got on the Tigers, and now he's pretty much an everyday player. Same thing with Akil Badu. And I think this is paying off for the Tigers so far. They lost 15-6 on Monday to the Twins, but he had a grand slam. Then he gets the game-winning hit, the walk-off on Tuesday. I mean, this guy, he's proven enough to be out there on the field. You know, there was a lot of question marks before. Nobody knew who he was, but he's really showing that he belongs in a Tiger uniform. I've been impressed with him so far. And as we record on a Wednesday, the Tigers are up 1-0 over the Twins. So looking to go to 4-2 on the year. Wow. I mean, just watching some of those games and listening over the weekend, I was just in awe, really. And, you know, because look at this. The Tigers have been bad. I mean, let's just say they've been bad. I mean, they've had their bright spots here and there, but they've just been bad overall the last couple years. And at least this team, for right now, I know it's early, but for right now, they're giving me a little bit of hope. They're giving me something to look forward to and cheer about in the next coming years. Am I expecting playoffs? No. I'm not one of those fans that thinks as soon as we start winning games at the beginning of the year, we're going to make the playoffs. No. I'm very realistic about this team. I don't see them making the playoffs or anything like that. But, I mean, with the way they're playing, is 70, 75 wins, is that a stretch? I mean, I think the over-under was like 67, so I don't think I'm that far off. I don't think I'm that, bad or whatever to consider them being, a force. I mean, at least they're going to be competitive. I think, especially watching this weekend. I mean, yes, they had the blowout 15-6 loss, 9-3 to the Indians, but this is a team that's going to be aggressive. I saw it, with those hitters being aggressive, especially with like Ramos and Robbie Grossman. Other guys that teams didn't really want. And these guys are with the Tigers now, and they performed well over the weekend. I was impressed with how aggressive they were. Also, the pitching has improved. We talked about Boyd and his mechanics earlier, how it seems like he's definitely improved in that facet. Also, another key thing to note, some former starters are now in the bullpen for the Tigers. And I like this move. I do. Because guys like Derek Holland and Michael Fulmer. Michael Fulmer had that Tommy John surgery. Derek Holland is not the pitcher that he used to be like he was with the Rangers. They had a couple nice outings. They did. And I think it's smart on A.J. Hinch and the coaching staff's part because these guys have had proven success as starters in the MLB. Have they lost their luster? Yes, I think they have. But that doesn't mean that they can't be effective relievers. And they can't be effective coming out of the pen. And I got to say, I've been happy with that. I like the idea of using these guys to come out of the pen and to be effective. They don't have to be starters. Now, can they be spot starters every once in a while? Yes. You can, if you need a sixth guy for one day, like during a day game or whatever, start Fulmer or start Holland or one of those guys. Yes, that's fine. But a guy that can be consistent in the bullpen, I don't mind. They've showed that they can be MLB starting pitchers in the past. They've lost their luster. Why not pitch an inning or two? You can still do that. I like the idea. And you got to give a lot of credit to A.J. Hinch, to be honest. I mean, you could just tell some of the different moves that they've made on their roster, the different acquisitions, how aggressive they are, the different pitching mechanics, where to use different pitchers. You can tell that's very different than the other staff, like with Gardenhire or Ausmus. I mean, and I like it. I like it a lot. And it just shows how good of a manager A.J. Hinch is. Now, look, you can talk about all the scandal with the Astros and all that you want, but that doesn't mean he's not a bad manager or he's not a good manager. A.J. Hinch knows what he's doing. And when AJ was hired, we did a interview with Jake Biding, the former strength and conditioning coach for the Houston Astros. You can go back and listen to that episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Very good episode. He gave us a lot of good insight on AJ. And he just talked about how he's able to relate to everybody, and he's been in all kinds of different levels in baseball. So he's been with management. He's been with, obviously on the field as a manager and as a coach. He's been in the front office. He's been a player. So he has a lot of experience at these different levels of an organization. He's able to relate with all these people. And I think part of that, is showing off right now with the Tigers. He's able to relate to these players more. He's able to tweak a couple things. And he's having guys buy in. And one thing I got to take away, obviously there's going to be growing pains. We all know that. The Tigers will have some blowout losses like they did to the Twins on Monday, 15-6. But what I'm happy about is that we're not afraid. It doesn't seem like the Tigers are afraid anymore. It seems like they're aggressive and they're not going to lay down, if you know what I mean. Like they're going to continue to fight and compete. And because we've seen some Tiger teams in the past where, if they're losing or whatever, there just doesn't seem to be any fight or anything left. But this team is just a little different. Fighting and clawing for runs, no matter where they're from or what team got rid of them. It just seems like this team could really do something special. And I'm not saying playoffs or anything, but maybe shock some people in baseball. That would be my goal for them. So I think the Tigers are off to a nice start. Still 1-0 as we speak, but I think we're going to see some good things from them. That's for sure. They head to Cleveland this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they'll head to Houston after that. So AJ Hinch will make his return to Houston for the first time since being fired by the Astros. So that'll be interesting to see. And of course, Houston still is loaded with talent. And it'll definitely be fun to watch, and it'll be exciting because I know that the whole Venezuelan connection with the Tigers and the Astros, I know that's been some stuff has been written about that. So it's always fun when the Tigers play the Astros, and I've seen some good games over the years at Comerica Park. No Justin Verlander this year, though. Unfortunately, he's having surgery, Tommy John. So unfortunately, we won't be able to see my favorite baseball player of all time, Verlander, pitch against the Tigers again, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in Houston. Remember, go check out that interview we did with Jake Biding a couple months ago when AJ Hinch was hired. That was a very interesting interview. He had a lot of great insight on that, so be sure to check out the archives for that. Want to get into college basketball before we call it a day. So, national championship, Gonzaga versus Baylor. But before we talk about that, how about that shot from Jalen Suggs against UCLA? A hungry UCLA team led by Juzang. We talked about it last week, how they beat Michigan. I was impressed. I was impressed with their ability to fight, and Mick Cronin being the second-year head coach. What a really, really good year for UCLA and for Johnny Juzang, really putting his team on his back for that moment. And just that the fight, it just came up a little bit short as Jalen Suggs, they got that ball back, tied 90-90. He fires from just inside half court, and he banks the shot in. I don't care if Gonzaga lost the national championship. That highlight, as soon as that happened, I told myself, I said, that will always live in March Madness lore forever. I mean, game-winning shots is what the tournament is all about. I don't care if it's the first round or the national championship, whatever. Game-winning shots is really what drives March Madness and the whole idea of the underdog and the Cinderella and all that. And the fact that Jalen Suggs for Gonzaga was able to put up that shot, I mean, I think he catapulted his draft stock. Now, I'm not going to admit that I'm like some big expert with NBA draft picks or NBA draft lottery and all that, but I think that shot really catapulted Jalen Suggs' draft stock in the NBA draft, that's for sure, just like with Cade Cunningham and all those top prospects. So look for Jalen Suggs. Hey, maybe the Pistons will get him. We'll have to see. That's a whole another talk for another day, but Jalen Suggs just really, really clutch genes, if you will. And that's what the tournament's all about, those type of moments. But unfortunately, it was just not enough for Gonzaga as they lost 86-70 to Baylor. And I will say this, going to we went out to a restaurant, my buddy and I, to watch the game. We thought, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. It's going to be a really, really fun game, and it's going to be a great test because Mark Few and company, this is only their second NCAA championship appearance ever from being from such a small school. I wanted Gonzaga. They were kind of the underdog. I mean, they were undefeated the whole year, but I mean, obviously they play in that West Coast Conference. You know, not a whole lot of powers. I mean, the only schools that are really a threat to them year in and year out are St. Mary's and BYU. But I don't know. I just had a feeling, and this goes all the way back to my bracket when I first picked. I had a feeling that just with it being such a weird year, an undefeated team might as well just win it. And I know it's really, really hard and tough to pick undefeated teams, but I just had a feeling this year Gonzaga was able to do it. But unfortunately, from the get-go, when we were watching that game, I was just like, oh my gosh, Baylor's power and speed and their strength and their ability to hit the three. I could not believe how many threes they were going in. I mean, it was a very reminiscent game, in my opinion, to the UNC Michigan State game from 2009, the NCAA championship. If anybody remembers, you know, both teams, you know, it was supposed to be like a really even match. It was supposed to be a great game. And then UNC just absolutely dominated Michigan State, and Michigan State just can never seem to get a break. I mean, they'd try to claw back in and be like, okay, well, we got it within 10, you know, we got it within 8, whatever. And North Carolina would just hit shots, and they just could not miss. Same thing with Baylor. Baylor was the same thing. They just seemed to not miss. I mean, 9-0 at the beginning of the game, and it just pretty much seemed like the game was over. I mean, Gonzaga clawed back a little bit. They had that little bit of a buzzer beater to end the half, and it was 10 points. And I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe they might have a chance. But Baylor was just way too hot shooting. And Coach Scott Drew, I mean, really, really impressive there from him. I mean, he's been at Baylor for like 15, 20 years, somewhere in there. And he was able to capture a national championship for the first time. I saw something like how bad Baylor was at basketball when he first took over. I mean, they were a losing record, you know, getting blown out by Kansas and all that every year. And finally in year 15, 16, whatever it was, he's able to win a national championship. So awesome job from Baylor. And they beat the undefeated Gonzaga. And that's the one risk about picking Gonzaga every year is just that, you know, when will their West Coast Conference schedule really show? You know, I love the small schools, and I love the Jesuit schools in Gonzaga. I think Mark Few is a terrific, terrific coach. But it just wasn't enough. And maybe next year for Gonzaga, but this moment belongs to the Baylor Bears, and only 2 losses, I believe, on the whole year. And they had a really, really good year last year, but then obviously there was no tournament. So best of luck to Baylor and Gonzaga and everybody in the future. But speaking of college basketball, I wanted to bring this up really fast. You know, in the next couple weeks, the talk will be dominated by Lions, and because the draft will be coming up, and then the Tigers. But I did want to bring this up on a side note with Michigan State basketball. Dane Fife, their longtime assistant coach, he was also the associate head coach. He's leaving Michigan State to go to Indiana and be on that new staff since Archie Miller is gone. So I think that's interesting because I always thought Dane Fife was going to be the successor to Tom Izzo at Michigan State. And I always thought he was always the next in line. And I thought he would stay. You know, he has a little bit of legacy there, and I know he played at Indiana, which it makes sense as to why he's leaving for Indiana, specifically because he played there, and he still has connections there and everything, but he does have a connection to Michigan State, you know, being there for so long and being able to recruit all those players. I mean, he recruited Foster Loyer, and his father was a big-time basketball coach at Clarkson before retiring just a couple of years ago. But unfortunate to see there, because I know he was a favorite among a lot of the coaches and the players, and just it's sad to see him go. But it's interesting because they haven't had any coaching changes within the last decade, and they're starting to get guys that are transferring, like Rocket Watts, and there's some other guys that are Amani Bates. A couple of guys have just decommitted from Michigan State. It's interesting. What is going on over at MSU? They haven't had this in a long time. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe something's happening. I don't know. I'm hoping it's more of just a coincidence than, stuff happening behind the scenes that nobody knows about with just because you think about it, there was so much expectation for Michigan State this year, and they just completely botched it. I mean, I know they made the tournament. They lost to UCLA in overtime, a team that ended up making the Final Four, but still, you expected more from Michigan State with talent like Rocket Watts and Aaron Henry and a transfer in Joey Hauser, and it just was not meant to be, and I really wonder what's going on. And Rocket Watts transferring, of course, and who knows if Aaron Henry's going to stay or go to the NBA draft. We don't know that yet. And it's just something to monitor, and it's something interesting to look out for, that's for sure. But we wish Dane Fife the best of luck as he leaves Michigan State for his alma mater of the Indiana Hoosiers. But thanks again, folks, for tuning in to Open Mic Night. Make sure to check out all the other content on the website, the Doc and Jock podcast, the wrestling podcast, gambling podcast, the Michigan podcast, all kinds of different podcasts on the network. And if you guys didn't check out their 400th episode of Doc and Jock last week, there was a lot of great guests on there. And, I'm still editing for them and everything. And I was really, really happy listening to that. It just felt really good that we're all part of a great network here. And it was fun to hear all those stories, and we're all part of it here, and you, the listener, are the reason why the network has grown. So we really appreciate your support, and thank you again for tuning in. More Lions talk later. Got some Tigers next week. It's all going to be April in the D is upon us here. Pistons, Red Wings, their seasons are pretty much over, but Tigers and a little bit of Lions with the NFL draft. So be looking forward to it. Stay tuned. We got the SI Lions and all that, so it'll be fun next couple weeks on the podcast, that's for sure. But thanks again for tuning in, only on Open Mic Night.